Hello everybody, Andy here, and today I want to go over the top 3 biggest tournaments that have just occurred. So we're going to talk about Warhammer World, which was two weekends ago now, a week, 8 days if you want to phrase it that way. I want to talk about the ones that just happened this weekend, which was LWG, that's the London tournament, and then also Nova, which of course was very interesting, a big 2-day tournament over in the States. Lots of interesting wins, so I wanted to kind of let you know what they were, what teams are going hard, all that good stuff. And then I'm going to preface it now. Nova had a very interesting meta, and I want to talk about that. But I also want to point out, I'm going to mention some teams that there were a lot of them at Nova. But if you look at the tournaments happening outside of Nova, didn't have the same kind of breakdown of factions. So although it's a very interesting case study, Nova, I don't think it's particularly indicative of something, but we get to that in a mo. Anyway, I wanted to start chronologically. And chronologically, first we have Warhammer World, because I'm slow at releasing content. That's what I'm known for. You think Glass Half Dead, you think Kill Team, you think that guy never releases any videos, obviously. That's if you're only paying attention to my good videos. Anyway, if you're subscribed to my channel, I'd like to give you a big double hello. If you want more hilarious, self-deprecating content like that, like, subscribe, and leave a comment right now. And that comment can be your favourite team. That's an interesting one, actually. Yeah, and that's going to come up at the end. That's going to be a theme when we talk about the meta at Nova. Cool. Oh wait, I have a slide as well. Wow! What does that slide mean? I've got no clue. Basically, I do stuff outside of just this channel. If you really like what I'm doing here, do consider supporting me on Patreon, because that's one of the best, most awesome ways that you can show that you like my content and can help me continue to do it. All right, let's zoom on in. I've got the wrong one up, so I'm going to go and change that page before I zoom into it, because that's not the one we want to talk about first. We want to talk about Warhammer World. So this was, how many people? 58 players, so big enough that it can be considered a bit of a major, I think. Certainly it was a golden ticket event. So that's important to know, of course. So this was all on the open, but if you're aware of how Warhammer World works, they have done in the past things very differently to everywhere else. So what they do over there is that their kill zones are all of the kill zones from Season 1. So you've got Octarius, Chalnath, Morok, Mechanicum, which isn't called that, and they do their own one, Vigilus. They've gone a bit crazy and they add in some extra stuff that isn't in the boxes, and so you have a nice, varied, beautiful looking set of tables. I believe there was no Into the Dark at Warhammer World, but I could be mistaken. But I believe it was all open, but very varied, very different. However, there was a big difference this time in that they were using the Turning Point Tactics map pack. By the way, if you're not aware, when it comes to Kill Team, pretty much all of the big content creators are actively involved in playing the game. Turning Point Tactics is the first one I will mention, but there are I think I'm mentioning 6 other content creators as I go through this video. So go and check out Turning Point Tactics. Cool. They make a cool map pack as well as having a podcast. Go check that out. And Warhammer World, very interesting news, chose to use this fan-made map pack for their tournament. Very interesting. Warhammer World was the last kind of bastion of defense that was not yet using doors on Octarius, but the walls have fallen, and now even Warhammer World is using doors on the Octarius kill zone. So that is now, in my opinion, totally official. Yeah, so do that. If you're playing Octarius, which I have right here, then make sure you use your doors, because that is how everybody plays it now, to be honest. Anyway, let's talk about the top 8. Again, 58 players. I'm obviously not going to cover everything. The top 8, as we can see, were Phobos with Ace, we all know him, Star Striders, Commandos, Inquisition, Breachers, Commandos, Breachers, Warp Coven. Now I do want to point out quickly, Warp Coven there, I played Warp Coven the same day at a different tournament. Now this Warp Coven came 8th and he only lost 2 matches. I also lost 2 matches in my tournament, so really, in a sense, in a certain vibe kind of way, I came 8th at Warhammer World. Don't question it, that's just how maths works. Phobos coming first at such a big event is really interesting. Now, of course, it's played by Ace, somebody that we all know. He is currently the #1 player in the world, so this isn't the hugest shock. You know, I've often said that Kill Team is a great kind of game for player skill and expression, and there's not much more of an expression than Ace running a faction, and I've always said that, you know, he could run a very not top faction and beat me even if I was running a top faction, and I stand by that. But is Phobos the new meta? Are Phobos OP broke? No. They're a really good team. Like, I think they are a genuinely really strong team. I've lost to them many times, so yeah. What more can I say? But Ace is running them, so kind of irrelevant to talk about the strength of the team, but it is just a good general sign that yes, the game continues to be balanced because a good player can take a team and win with it. Nice. However, Ace was in my Discord and did give a few hints and tips about what he ran. He was also just featured on Just Another Kill Team podcast, which you should also check out there. That's another content creator mention drop. It's a podcast, it's related to Goonhammer, it's great stuff, go and check that out. So, he always ran Seek and Destroy or Recon, which makes total sense because people would only ever run Infiltration if they had no other choice. So, that's not really a surprise, but it's good, you know, it's good to know. It's good to know that we weren't all missing something with Infiltration, right? He always ran, and this is the most interesting thing, I think, because Phobos are a very interesting team, and I think people aren't quite sure, should I run X, should I run Y, that sort of thing, when it comes to operative choice. So the operatives he always ran in every game, I believe he said, was Reaver Leader, Reaver Warrior, Mine Layer, Marksman, Medic, and Veteran. So that's good to know. If you know, I'd happily consider that a list. Nice and simple. Nobody's tied up. He hasn't taken the Saboteur. He hasn't taken the comms. Nobody's tied up with, you've got to make sure you know, keep people in auras or anything like that. It's like, no, these are 6 fully functional guys that can do what they need to do without having backup if it comes to that. So that's good to know. A general tactic he did mention was that you do want to move up the board, even with the marksman. You don't have the bodies to not be scoring points and hanging around at the back, so keep that in mind. His big fears were Gelapox and Cults on C. C being capture from TAC Ops, which means stand on points without having to action, which makes sense as one of Phobos' buffs was getting to perform a mission action for free for a CP added to the Vanguard ploy, which was a real... Phobos is so strong, it's crazy. I'm actually really surprised they haven't placed so highly in such a big tournament before, to be honest with you. I think, really strong team. There you go. Quickly jumping back to, it was the Turning Point Tactics map. You can either go check out their channel or in my Discord under the Terrain tab channel. His map pack is pinned, go check that out. It's very good. I basically always play with it because that way, if the terrain's bad, because terrain is so important in Kill Team, I can blame somebody else. There you go. And then we go on to Bad Moon Cafe. Here we go. So, what do we think about Bad Moon Cafe? Well, I can't see it on my notes, so who knows? It was 37 players, and it was a mixed open/into the dark. The top 8 were Legionary, Kassakin, Phobos, Farstalker, Elucidian Starstriders, Novitiates, Warp Coven, Kassakin. So that's cool. We see 2 Kassakin up top. We see another Phobos. We see Warp Coven. Honestly, pretty nice little top 8 there. Legionary first makes a lot of sense. We know how strong Legionary are. Good to see them, you know, still doing what they do. They haven't been completely wrecked by, I don't know, commandos. Also, Kasachkin have a really good matchup into elites, and there were 2 in the top 8, so that's very interesting. Right. Oh, I suppose, do I mention it now? No, I'll wait till I mention it in Nova. So it was quite interesting because the meta here, there were only 2 commandos players, and that's going to come up when we talk about Nova. I'm going to leave the analysis for this tournament for a little bit because I'm going to have the winner, Pete, who ran Legionaries, on my Vantage Point podcast soon, so we're going to discuss his games there and a Legionary breakdown over there. So yeah, cool stuff. Which brings us to Nova. Very briefly mentioned, there was a team tournament, which was this one here, and that was won by the Woodley Warriors, a father wrangling 2 teenagers. How he manages it, we may never know, but also they have a podcast called the Woodley Warriors podcast. If you want to hear from 2 really good players, and go there. Sorry, I was going to make a joke that the dad is not a good player, but actually he's not on the podcast, so just imagine he was and I insulted him because that's way funnier. Cool, right. And that brings us to the premiere event. Now this was another golden ticket event and it was 61 players, biggest yet, very cool. This was a really interesting meta, okay? We're going to talk about that, but let me first give you the top 8, okay? So if you want to look on BCP, which is where we are here, I'll quickly scroll down, okay? We're only looking at the top 8 because there was a top 8 cut. That's why I've been mentioning the top 8s in all of these tournaments, because that's where the cut happened at Nova. Top 8 doesn't necessarily mean a specific thing, it's just that's how they cut it at Nova. Cool. So, the top 8 I'm about to tell you isn't what you're going to see here, which is weird, and that's because BCP doesn't handle anything that isn't just like straight Swiss particularly well. Also, in the top 8 cut, some of them played their final round as 2 games and added the scores together or something complicated I didn't fully understand. For example, number 1 there, Adrian Bonvento from the Brooklyn Strategists. Great to see them out in force. All performing quite well, I believe. You'll see his final score is 39. It's the accumulation of 2 games. I don't quite know how, I don't quite know why, but that's what they did, so cool, nice. Right, the top 8 were, as you can see, Commandos, Legionary, Blooded, Commandos, 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 Vet Guard, Vet Guard. Anyway, so that means Adrian from Brooklyn Strategists takes the golden ticket. Great to see them out, as I said. Shane from Command Point taking second with Legionary, and of course that's our, is that third, fourth? That's our 4th mention of a content creator. Go check him out on the Command Point channel. I believe he got a silver ticket for that, which is cool that they're giving out extra tickets, even if they aren't the fully comped gold tickets. Then we have Nick from Plasma Spam taking 3rd with Blooded, also getting a silver ticket, very cool. And then this is where it gets different to what you're seeing on screen. In 4th, Liam from Woodley Warriors with Commandos taking 4th. Again, that's the same Woodley Warriors as the team tournament there. They won that, and then he came 4th in the main event. I believe he didn't get a silver. I think the silver was just for 2 and 3, but I don't know. And very, very quickly, I will scroll down here because, hey, I'm giving them all shout outs, right? He's showing us 4th here, but he was actually 5th. John from Can You Roll a Crit, obviously go and check him out. He's very relaxed, very casual player, but you know, it's good to see him taking part in some of these bigger tournaments. Not really what he does normally, but check that out. And then we also have Dakota Luster, who is from the Squad Games podcast. Definitely go check him out too. I've met them before. Great bunch of guys over there. Cool. Right. I think that's all of the content creator shout outs done now. So, yeah. Okay, sweet. I can bring this back up because we've seen that now. Now you can look at my incredibly quick weather update for England. Hot as balls. There you go. Moving on. So let's have a few takeaways from Nova. Sorry, let's have a few takeaways from Nova because it's a very skewed meta, very interesting, very skewed, very interesting. So, in 40k, taking a sideways turn, bear with me. Eldari are busted, and we all know it, right? And they are showing at Nova in the 40k Nova Open top 20 players, 50% were Eldari. That's quite a large percentage, if I'm honest. Okay, almost half, you could argue, depending on how you want to take that. And that was the final. So that was after a round where a bunch of undefeated Eldari knocked each other out in mirror matches. If you were to ignore mirror matches, I'm looking forward to the eventual Goonhammer article where they ignore the mirror matches, and I'm sure it's just absolutely insane. I wouldn't be at all surprised if it's above an 80% win rate for non-mirror matched Eldari, which is mad. Pretty crazy, pretty crazy. Out of 61 players for the Nova Kill team, the two most taken factions were Intercession and Commandos. There was one Chaos Cults player and one Kassakin player, 0 Wormblade, 0 Inquisition, 0 Kroot Farstalkers, 0 Wormblade, 0 Hunterclade, 0 Felgor. So you all know what I'm thinking. You're thinking, I'm like, oh great, 6 teams I can play. Awesome. Because then I'm a hipster, right? Correct. I'm bringing Felgor back, baby. So simple and easy to play, still relatively strong. I'll play that, sure. Fine by me. Okay. That's just some interesting things I noticed from factions, okay? Now, a third of the field was taken up by 2 teams, and then the top 8 being 50% Commandos is pretty mad, if I'm honest. But there were 10 Commandos players and 10 Intercession players. The best placing Intercession player was 24. But then 50% of the top 8 were Commandos. And I think it was actually 9 of the top 20. So almost 50% were Commandos if you look at top 20. But who cares about top 20? It's irrelevant. It's a meaningless number, right? So honestly, just really interesting results. And I actually really want to take kind of a deeper dive into the current power ranking of Commandos. Because although they are doing very well in tournaments right now, and are getting taken to tournaments a lot more right now, did the recent buff actually boost them that much? They were a great counter for Cults, yes, but no one is playing Cults anymore. The community completely dropped Cults the second it got nerfed, even though it really wasn't that big of a nerf. Ditto for Felgor, although they were a bigger nerf, to be fair. So just really interesting. And I think we're going to start seeing a very big rotating meta now. So Commandos have not been played and have not been performing very well for the past year. Why is that? Well, indeed. And then Chaos Cults comes out and they start destroying the teams that were keeping Commandos from not performing very well, not placing very well. And that's how the meta cycle works. It's inevitable. So it's really cool to see that. And I will do a video breaking down my thoughts on, you know, why Commandos are having their rise and when that's going to end. And it's going to end when people go back to playing more Legionary and better players play Intercession. So, you know, that's the end of it. But it's just very interesting to see that meta cycle really coming into play. And I think, arguably, I could be wrong, but I think this is the first time it's been so strong. But also, again, keep in mind, this seems to be very, very... I mean, this is a big skew, right? And it's only happened at Nova. We haven't had too many tournaments since the buff nerf to Commandos Cults, but maybe it's indicative, maybe it's something to talk about. It's interesting, that's for sure. But again, not happening anywhere else. We are seeing Commanders being picked more in general, which makes sense, they did just have a buff. And there's such a thing as buffing for visibility, but that's all part of a whole other video, so I'm not going to talk about it and go in depth. It's very interesting. I've said that things are too interesting in this video. I can sense that. So let's finish with the final interesting thing, and that's right, if you're subscribed. No, if you made it to the end, you're a bit triple hello. It's hot. I might be suffering from heat stroke, hence the quality of this video. If you thought this video was better than normal, that's the heat stroke. If you thought it was worse than normal, heat stroke. But honestly, I hope you enjoyed that triple hello, because that is my thank you for watching to the end of the video, because very genuinely, nothing helps a small channel like mine more than just watching the damn videos, you know? So thank you so much. If you do really like what you see here, do please consider checking me out on Patreon. My patrons mean a lot to me. The support is amazing, and very genuinely, without them around, I wouldn't have a channel anymore. So it's awesome. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Don't forget, drop a comment letting me know your favorite faction. And you know what? If you made it to the end, also tell me why Commandos.